right, good morning and welcome to Counterpoints. How you doing, Emily?
I'm doing great. How are you, Ryan?
We have an amazing show today.
We really do. Today we do have we say it, but today we have an amazing show.
I was telling Sagar I need more of his kid in the candy store energy in the show.
You need more ghost energy.
I mean, yes, just fired up and happy to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that's more of a psychological thing, though.
All right, there we go. Okay.
Maybe you just need more Kamala joy in your life.
That might be it.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's it.
The joy is rubbing off. So we're going to talk about RFK, a lot of RFK. And also, people have been asking about the Friday show. We're back to Friday shows.
Yeah.
This Friday, we're going to have a debate over the role of RFK in this race and in his role in the general, whether or not he's going to actually be a boost to Trump or not, or whether he feeds into the Democratic weird meme that they're trying to wrap around Republicans.
Yeah, we'll be joined by Michael Tracy and Jeff Hutt, who's a field director for RFK Jr.'s campaign, for a debate about the future of RFK Jr., his Trump endorsement and all of that. So stay tuned to the Friday show for that debate, but it'll come out early for premium subscribers on Thursday night. We're going to start by covering the ongoing situation where Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. are now going to be stumping for Donald Trump on the campaign trail. He's sort of collecting his former Democrat island of misfit toys and sending them out. And I don't say that derisively because I think we'll get into it. I don't want to tease
the Republicans love theirs. I mean, the Democrats love theirs. They put their Republicans up on stage at the convention, yeah.
And we'll be doing some election updates. We have some interesting news about ballot access, about Kamala Harris's fundraising numbers, which are eye-popping. We're going to talk about the hostage release yesterday in Israel and other updates in that conflict.
Massive raid by the IDF of the West Bank. They currently have Jenin surrounded. Bizarrely, they are calling it Operation Summer Camps.
Ooh.
Which, come on, are you serious?
You always also know the operation name, which I think is useful.
I guess sometimes it is. Other times you're like, what are you doing?
Because it's such a window into the...
Operation Summer Camps, come on.
It's so bizarre. All right, and then we'll be talking about Mark Zuckerberg's kind of concession, his regrets about censoring.
Mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made.
Posts were censored.
Right, and that's about both COVID and the Hunter Biden laptop story, as Zuckerberg put in a letter this week. So we will be talking about that and just the crazy ongoing situation with the French government and the French sort of their attempts to form a government. And we'll tell you what Emmanuel Macron is up to because it's a doozy.
We were just saying that whenever your republic is called the Fifth Republic, that might not bode well for its longevity. So we may be staring at the tail end of the fifth and the beginning of the sixth, and it'd be interesting to see what we have in the middle.
Or they just stop with the whole republic thing. There might not be a sixth.
That's true. Where's another? Are there any Napoleon heirs around?
There might be. Yeah. There might be. Brian, tell us about Dan Osborne, who's joining the show as a guest as well.
This is fascinating. Everybody believes that control of the Senate and thus the agenda for whoever comes into office hinges on the Montana Senate race.
Okay.
That if Democrats and John Tester hold that one, that they're going to hold the Senate. There's also this wild card of Nebraska, where Democrats decided, you know what, people hate us so much, we're not even going to run a candidate in Nebraska. Forget about it. The absolute political dynamo of Montana Republican Senator Deb Fischer is unbeatable. In comes veteran Dan Osborne, who led a massively successful strike in the state. And he's running a kind of class-first, independent campaign. Polls have him, shouldn't be surprising to anybody that watches this program, neck and neck with the brand name Republican in the state. You could have a scenario where this actually pans out. Or this might be a Democratic gimmick, where they're just trying to cloak a Democrat in independent clothing.
Yes.
Although one who happens to be a labor leader in the state and with a cool background. We'll ask Dan Osborne which he is at the end of the program.
Great. Well, looking forward to that. Let's start with Tulsi Gabbard and also RFK Jr. jumping into the race on behalf of Donald Trump. This has been developing over the course of the week. Obviously started with RFK Jr.'s announcement that he was formally endorsing Trump, but has developed as Trump has brought them both on as campaign advisors. This is some of the big news, and we have a clip from RFK Jr.'s recent appearance on Tucker. Tucker reportedly helped kind of broker the negotiations about an endorsement and a dropout. So let's take a listen to what RFK Jr. said on an edition of Tucker Carlson's show that came out yesterday.
I'm going to work to get him elected. And you know, I'm working with the campaign. We're working on policy issues together. I will I've been asked to go onto the transition team and, to help pick the people who will be running the government. And I'm looking forward to that. And I'm going to fight. I don't know what would happen to me if we lose.
Well, that's kind of it. I mean, a lot of people I know personally and I'm friends with have gone to prison. One of them's in prison right now, Pavel Durov. There are others. Like, what happens if he loses to you?
If
Trump loses and Kamala Harris becomes president?
Oh, I don't know. But I mean, I never really think about that. What I think is
good.
What I think is, okay, here's what I got to do today, and get up every day and say, "Reporting for duty, sir," and then go do that. And nothing's a crisis, everything's a task, right? And so that's what I'm going to be, kind of a happy warrior. I know what I have to do, so I'm going to do it.
So Tulsi Gabbard also made a speech at a National Guard. Trump made a speech. She made her formal endorsement of Trump at a National Guard event in Detroit. So let's take a listen to Tulsi Gabbard. And as I cue up this clip, I'll also mention that it's worth remembering both RFK Jr. and Tulsi endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2016. So here's what Tulsi Gabbard had to say at that speech.
This administration has us facing multiple wars on multiple fronts and regions around the world, and closer to the brink of nuclear war than we ever have been before. This is one of the main reasons why I'm committed to doing all that I can to send President Trump back to the White House, where he can once again serve us as our commander-in-chief. Because I am confident that his first task will be to do the work to walk us back from the brink of war. We cannot be prosperous unless we are at peace. And we can't live free as long as we have a government that is retaliating against its political opponents and undermining our civil liberties, weaponizing our very institutions against those they deem as a threat. Kamala Harris has done this over the last 3.5 years. She won't hesitate to continue that if she is elected as president. President Trump has been their first and foremost target in this because they don't want us as voters to even have the option to vote for him. I've been their most recent target, added to a secret domestic terror watch list after exposing the truth about what kind of dangers we would face if Kamala Harris is elected as president.
Okay, so that was Tulsi Gabbard. She also, and you could probably fill in the blanks from the speech, but said one of the biggest reasons she was endorsing Donald Trump is that there were no new wars started under his watch. And that was, foreign policy was a huge feature of the speech. I guess no surprise from Tulsi Gabbard. Now, I don't know who to blame. Go ahead.
Quick programming note on that one. She mentioned that she was put on this terror watch list.
Quiet
It's
Skies.
called Quiet Skies.
Right.
Next week, we're going to have Matt Taibbi and Jeffrey Sachs on the Friday show.
Yes.
Talking about other stuff, but Taibbi has done a bunch of reporting on the Quiet Skies Tulsi Gabbard element, so we can get an update on that. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't know who to blame for putting this Chris Cillizza tweet in the rundown, because why? But we can go ahead and put A3 up on the screen. Chris Cillizza tweeted this fairly interesting graph that comes from the Pew Research Center. Now, what's also pretty interesting about this, you're seeing how Harris-Trump supporters view key cultural issues. If you're listening to this, that's what the graphic says. It goes down the line of gun ownership, how the legacy of slavery affects the position of Black people in America today, openness to people from all over the world, religion should be kept separate from government policies. And what you see is just really intense polarization. That was also the same between Biden supporters and Trump supporters, which is fairly interesting. Pew redid the poll after Harris got in the race because Harris has actually gotten RFK Jr. voters, this is also from Pew, who were supporting him in July, broke for Harris 2-1, according to their research between July and August. So this is all happening against the backdrop of really stark cultural polarization. And I think that's what makes it doubly interesting that both RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard come from positions supporting Bernie Sanders. Tulsi obviously memorably was the vice chair of the DNC. These are not, people who were sort of figuring out what they believed and, the type of centrists who were brokering deals with like the Never Trump Adam Kinzingers. I mean, these are ideological Like you might take issue if I say leftists, but they were at least close to that.
I think what's telling and interesting about both of them is that they both have eccentric and kind of malleable politics. And and that's not a criticism. What that means is that when there's a realignment happening, when there's a shift on the move, they are going to be the first types of people who are on the move. Gabbard was the kind of, so when she first ran in her primary, she was considered the more conservative of the Democrats running in the primary, and there was some skepticism of her coming in because of this really ardent support of the global war on terror, which is one of her few positions that has remained completely consistent throughout her career.
And it's why conservative is a weird label for her, among many other reasons.
Yeah, and so then in February 2016, right before Super Tuesday, she resigned from vice chair of DNC and supported Bernie Sanders. But then in 2020, she ran herself rather than support Sanders. And then after dropping out, instead of endorsing Sanders, who was still running, she endorsed Biden, which is a weird, like that's not really on the horseshoe. That's her just kind of going on the spectrum, the old traditional spectrum, with a little stop in the middle, and then becoming an independent, and then an independent conservative, and then a Republican, and then a Trump supporter. But I do think this is not a criticism of her. It's what it says, that I think somebody like her who has kind of the kind of politics that a lot of people have, which you have, you agree with some people over here and you agree with some people over there.
Defies categorization.
That she would be more attracted to the kind of looser coalition that is Trump right now.
And she's also, correct me if I'm wrong, but she's also like a Medicare for all populist economic person as well.
She definitely was. Be interesting to see. Recently, I saw her saying stuff about how government spending's out of control and we got to attack the deficit.
Interesting.
Very non-Bernie type stuff. But she should come on the program now as his as an ambassador.
We'd love that. Talk about that
as a surrogate and say, look, and we'll talk about where you are on that, because Trump is for all that stuff practically. If it depends on his mood, but there was that famous moment where Paul Ryan's like trying to repeal Obamacare for like the 53rd time, and Trump's like, why don't we just do single payer?
Yeah. It's
and Ryan's like, we're not going to do that.
No, we can't. Well, there might be some issues.
Yeah, we're not doing that. We're not that party.
Right.
But Trump, what does he care?
No.
He's like, is it good healthcare?
Brent, I particularly wanted to get your take at, actually speaking about that, on this clip from RFK Jr. where he's discussing how the environmental movement's obsession with carbon started to push him away from the Democratic Party, away from the left. He calls Tucker Carlson a radical environmentalist. Tucker agrees with that very heartily. And I think it fits into this broader discussion about how increasingly a lot of normal Americans just defy categorization. That might be because of Trump, by the way. People feel like they don't belong in the Republican Party because they're really uncomfortable with Donald Trump and they're really uncomfortable for support for Donald Trump. Or you have people like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. RFK Jr. in particular has some colorful quotes about Donald Trump from years past where he's highly critical of him. So it's kind of a remarkable turn of events to what you were just speaking about. How does Tulsi Gabbard go from endorsing Bernie to endorsing Biden to endorsing Donald Trump? And I'm thinking about Tulsi in Afghanistan. Biden wanted to end the war in Afghanistan. Everybody sort of has their big priorities, and they say, I can deprioritize all of these other policy issues where I disagree with one candidate on, because I think what they're going to do on this particular issue, which is my priority, which I think is the most important thing in the country, is going to get done under them. That's kind of what RFK Jr. is talking about here with the environment. So let's roll this clip of him talking to Tucker Carlson.
You literally spent your life with Riverkeepers as an environmentalist, an environmental lawyer in the environmental movement. I mean, that's your life work product. Have you been expelled from the movement?
Pretty much, yeah. The weird thing is I think of you as a radical environmentalist.
Well, I definitely am.
Yeah. You are.
I haven't showered inside in 10 years. Yeah. No, I feel it so strongly.
But also, you love nature. You're against these big projects that are destroying it. And, you talked about toxics, and the environmental movement no longer talks about toxics anymore. They don't care about it. I talk Roger Ailes all the time, who both of us know, who would let me occasionally onto Fox News to talk about it, but there was so much hostility from the Republican Party because it was like you're attacking corporate profit taking, and that these are chemicals, they're molecules. Who cares? You know, they can't hurt you. And there was just, and then you do this incredible show on endocrine disruptors. And I'm like, oh my God, Tucker Carlson has just done the best show that's ever been done, showing, you know, what's happening with endocrine disruptors and how they're just destroying us. And the Democrats went after you and the environmental movement. And I'm like, what? You know, this is what we've been trying to get for 40 years, the Republicans to care about these issues. And they said, oh, he's saying that chemicals turn people gay and he's anti-gay and all of this stuff. And that wasn't what you said at all. And that's not what anybody said.
Ryan, you're a hippie. Is he right?
Yeah.
Is he right that toxins in particular, because that's what he's doing. He's saying, listen, Donald Trump has said that he might give me the ability to have some oversight over public health, the obesity crisis, the chemical crisis, the metabolic disease crisis. You know, I think that is the most important thing in the world. And if we don't deal with it, you know, that's why I'm basically supporting Donald Trump. So is he right that the environmental movement has moved away from those priorities in a way that's alienating sort of old school RFK Jr. environmentalists, or is he mischaracterizing it?
I don't know if it's alienating old school RFK Jr. types other than him, but he's absolutely right about the focus on carbon, and climate change. Like, there's no question about that. I don't think, and we could get him back on the show and ask him, I don't think it needs to be an either or. Like, climate change is an existential threat to us. Like, the Middle East is going through, right, like as we speak, one of its like worst heat waves in history. Just looked, it's like 110 in Baghdad, which I understand people are like, oh, it's the Middle East, it's hot over there. No, it's like much hotter than normal. And we are facing massive problems as a result of it. His point that we have overlooked toxicity is dead on. There's no constituency right now calling out forever plastics.
Except for Tucker Carlson.
Right, yes. And that was an interesting program that he did on endocrine disruptors and plastics, and also the way that our food system is poisoning us, basically, at an industrial level. These are all like also existential questions that we need to be faced. So it shouldn't be an either or. Right. Because you have to get them both right. If you get one right and you don't get the other right, good luck. Yeah. So yes, we do need to focus on them both. It would be kind of a shame if you wound up with like one party is like, we need to deal with toxics, and the other ones, we need to deal with carbon, and they're like, forget it, let's just do neither.
It's crazy because you could easily see like the revival of the crunchy con trope is exploding more than it was when Rod Dreher originally wrote the book, Crunchy Conservatives. Like, this is, right now, I've never seen anything like this in the Republican Party, where you have people like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard supporting Donald Trump and talking about these issues, people like Tucker Carlson openly talking about these issues. But you could easily see a world where we see this on economic policy a lot, healthcare policy a lot. You just never end up putting the two pieces together. They can have conversations and be like, yes, you're right, this is so important,
and this is one where you
falls apart.
Where you really have to bring both sides together on this, because you can't approach the question of toxicity and toxics in our food system and in our water from a personal responsibility right-wing frame.
Right,
like,
right.
You just can't. It's like, hey, have better personal responsibility. Find water that doesn't have plastic in it.
Right.
Like,
right.
You can go to the Arctic and you can't find that.
Yeah.
This is a global problem that requires a global, literal top-down solution that can be like democratically executed and agreed upon by everybody. But yeah, just saying like we need to, and it goes to the kind of environmentalism that corporate America tried to foist onto the world in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. One of their big scams was recycling.
Recycling, yeah.
Where they're like, just take personal responsibility and separate things, put them in these bins, feel like you're doing something good, then they'll all put them all in the same place, and then they'll just make that much more plastic. The second was when they invented the term carbon footprint, as if every particular act you take has some particular carbon footprint, and then if you just buy offsets for your little carbon footprint, then actually everything's okay.
It's a great scam.
Rather than saying, No. The problem is the industrial production of blasting carbon into the atmosphere that needs to be reined in at a global level, not by a few people like making different choices and biking rather than driving, which you should do, but you should do all these things because they're good for you, not because you think that they're going to be the solution to a global crisis.
Well, and that's the opening for, I think, a conversation with conservatives, and it's bubbling into something that's more than a conversation, which is where that's particularly worth watching, because some of these things, right, like when you're trying to talk about healthcare, a right-left alliance, or trade, a right-left alliance, you can have all these conversations and then you hit a brick wall because ultimately you don't want to be seen with Donald Trump or you don't want to be seen with Joe Biden. Like CHIPS, great example, it ultimately passed, but a lot of Republicans ended up dropping out of their support for CHIPS, which they had like shepherded through the Senate and through Congress. And here, I mean, I just don't know where this goes, because to your point, I mean, if conservatives are concerned about forever plastics, microplastics, endocrine disruptors, all of these things, you also have to, I mean, that's tethered for many people like RFK Jr. to climate, to production of like intense industrial production levels. So we'll see how it ends up.
Right, there has to be an actual earnest conversation about it, because it gets really interesting. Because on the forever plastics, for instance, one of the leading sources of them, if you go down this rabbit hole, is car tires, like the rubber in car tires. And you need stronger tires to drive heavier EVs. So paradoxically, the more EVs you get, the more toxic tires you have, and then the more forever plastics you have out there. You could be, the oil industry be like, aha, that shows we shouldn't do EVs, we shouldn't care about climate at all. Or you could say, okay, these are problems. We're not morons. Like we can get together and collectively figure this out if our goal is to actually make a better planet and not to just protect like incumbent oil industries or plastic industries or whatever else.
Sure. Well, it'll be a fun one to watch.
We'll see.
For sure. Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.